All right, so hopefully we are recording, and the video for this should be posted to our website sometime next week. And let's do this. All right, can everyone see my screen? I'm going to assume yes. You can pop on and say no verbally. I cannot see any of your faces at this point. The joy of working with Microsoft Teams. Okay, so assuming that everyone can see my screen and still hear me, today's webinar, I'll be going over the IDA and the IDA tax credit application. They are a combined application. I will be providing, to start with, a somewhat brief summary of the IDA program. I like to give anyone who's new to the program an idea of what they are signing up for if they are considering applying for this program. So I'll go over both the IDA and IDA tax credit programs in just a couple of slides, and then I'll get into the application. And I'm hoping if we have time at the end, I do have a slide that provides a quick overview of the changes to the IDA program from last year. There aren't too many, but there are a couple that I want to make returning administrators aware of. The IDA 2021 manual is posted to our website. I recommend that you take a look through that, or at least at the sections where there are the changes that I point out, just so that, again, you know what you're signing up for when you apply to this program. And for anyone who is new, who is looking for a deeper dive into IDA and what the program consists of and how you're expected to manage it, I recommend that you check out our video, our program overview webinar from last year. It is on our website. So if you go to our main IDA partner page on our website, you can find it there, or I've got the link on the slide right here, and I will also be making our slides available next week, so you can check that out. So diving right in, the IDA program, just very briefly, 1,000 level or 1,000 feet high level, however you say that, overview. This program is really meant to help low-income folks become more self-sufficient, and specifically become more self-sufficient with the ability to purchase assets. That's the entire intent of this program, is to work with our participants and get them to a point where they can purchase assets that they might not otherwise have access to, or might have to take out additional financing for without this assistance. So the assets that we focus on in this program fall under kind of 5 categories, and those are education or job training, building or expanding a small business, purchasing a primary residence in Indiana, or repairing a primary residence in Indiana, or purchasing a vehicle specifically for the purpose of education, job training, or employment. So just kind of, again, very briefly, broad overview, how does the program work? Well, the participants that you'll be working with have to be at or below 200% of the federal poverty level in order to be considered eligible. They have to have earned income and have enough of an income to meet their savings requirements in order to get match funds. And the way that the match funds would work is your participants will save. We recommend thinking of at least thinking of it in having your participants save $500 a year. They're having that match 3-to-1, so they are receiving $1,500 a year, and over a 3-year period, which is usually our recommended target participation timeline, they would save a total of $1,500. That's the maximum amount that they can save and have matched, and be provided with $4,500 over the course of their participation, for a combined $6,000 that they can then use on one of those eligible assets. During that time, while they are saving, they are also receiving financial education and education that relates specifically to their assets. So if you have someone who wants to purchase a home, they're getting general financial education, which could be education on credit scores and on different types of loans. And then the asset-specific training would be home buyer, maybe could be first-time home buyer training. So as an administrator, as the person who's responsible for making all of that happen, you have a somewhat long laundry list of responsibilities that we expect you to complete in this program. So I've got a long list of these, and I try to put them in somewhat of an order of kind of a general timeline. So starting with performing outreach for new applicants. Once you have some applicants, you need to review and hopefully approve their applications. Once they are approved and in the program, you're going to guide them through opening up their savings accounts, guiding them through the savings process, guiding them through their asset purchase process, and eventually, once everything is complete, closing out their savings accounts. You are in charge of making sure that they have their financial education requirements met. Either that could be you performing that service or connecting them to an outside partner and making sure that they complete the service with them. You're going to manage the accounts. The accounts are set up as custodial accounts, so the participants don't have carte blanche access to those accounts. It's your organization will need to be named on that account, and you'll need to provide approval for every withdrawal from that account. So the accounts are, in a way, yours to manage, and there's going to be two for each participant. One account will be set up where they can deposit their savings, and one account will be set up where the match from the state, from us, will be deposited. So you're managing all of those accounts. In addition, to managing your accounts, your organization's personal accounts, and you will also have two. You will have one for your admin, because we provide administrative support for this program. So you'll have an account where that can be deposited, and then you'll need to have a separate account where you'll manage the match funds. So anytime that you are requesting match for what a participant has saved, and we provide you with that match, it needs to go to that one bank account. The reason that we have that as a requirement for you to have set up is if we were to provide the match directly to your participants, we would need the bank account information for hundreds of participants, which our system is just not set up to be able to handle. We much prefer, and our system much prefers, having one match account for each organization, and then from there you transfer match into the individual participant accounts. Now, in order to get that match, you need to submit claims through our system called IHCDA Online. I believe some of you might refer to it as Authority Online. But once you are approved into this program, you'll need to be set up in there to submit claims. You'll need to submit any reporting that we require. Currently, our reporting is based on documentation that you submit with claims. I don't believe off the top of my head that we have any additional reporting at this time. So as long as you are submitting your claims correctly, you are meeting your reporting requirements. You'll need to manage your partnerships with your financial institution, the bank or credit union or similar, where you have set up your accounts and your participant accounts. Partnerships with any educational providers that you are using. I know a lot of organizations partner with other community organizations for outreach. So managing those relationships and anything of that kind. So again, that's just kind of a brief overview of all the things that you need to do. Highly recommend being familiar with our manual so that you'll get a deeper dive into what each of those consist of. So the way that the funding works is each account is worth $4,500. That's the match that each participant has access to if they reach their max savings goal. You will also receive $500 in admin per account. And you'll be able to claim those on a reimbursement basis, and they are not tied to performance. So what that means is you do not need to wait until you have someone make an asset purchase or graduate or anything like that before you can draw those funds. As soon as your award is set up in our claims system, so let's say you were awarded 5 accounts, that means you're going to get $2,500 in admin. As soon as that is set up in our system, you can start drawing on that, assuming that you have supporting documentation that shows that you are spending money on the program, either by paying people's salary for the time they've spent on the program, or maybe you've had to purchase program materials, anything like that. You can start claiming that money immediately. You don't need to wait until you've got accounts filled or anything. So that's true for that $500. We do have some admin funds that is based on performance. And so that's $250 per account. and that is split between $150 that you can submit for each participant that makes their first asset purchase. So as soon as you have someone signed up for the program, they've met all their requirements and they've made that first asset purchase. For a lot of your participants, there will only be one asset purchase, but if they are going to school and paying for semester bills, or maybe doing small business and buying different inventory, they might make multiple purchases, and it's only with their first purchase that you can then claim the $150. And there's a specific form that you'll use as your supporting documentation for that. And then the remaining $100, you can access that when you have someone graduate from the program. And the way that we define that for this purpose is someone who has used at least $4,200 of their $4,500 match. We'd much prefer that everyone use all of their match. It's always sad to leave money on the table and not have those participants use the full amount, but we understand that sometimes you just might have a couple of dollars left in their match account. And as long as you're pretty close to using the 4,500, we still want to make sure that you are given that basically that award for getting them through the program. And again, there's a specific form that you would use to access that. So total per account, when we're figuring out your award later, each account is worth overall $5,250. So that's our regular IDA program. In addition to regular IDA funds, which are supported with state funding and a state appropriation from our legislators, we also award tax credits to support IDAs. Now, the way that the IDA tax credit program works is basically the exact same as the regular program in how you interact with your participants. They need to follow all the same match rules, all the same educational rules, all that jazz. Anything to do with your participants, follow the same rules. What is different is how the money works. So unlike the regular IDA program, you do not use our claim system to receive or return your match funds. The match funds are going to come from distributing your tax credits. So we're going to award you tax credits, and you're going to use those tax credits and give them to your donors in exchange for their donations. And the way that the donations will work, which I believe will come up in a note later, is for every $2 that a donor gives you, they will get $1 in tax credits. So if you get a $10,000 award in IDA tax credits and you distribute all of them to your donors, you'll end up with $20,000 in funds that you can use for IDAs. What's nice about this program is of that $20,000, you can use 20% towards your admin costs, which is a bit higher than what you can than what we provide in the regular program. There is a limit. You can only use up to 20% of the first $100,000. So if you have of your $100,000 raised, so that would be for a $50,000 tax credit award. So if you request $60,000 in tax credits, you can still only use 20% of the first $100,000 you raise. Anything over that has to go just to match. So there's the tax credit explanation. The way that the reporting for this is going to work a little bit differently. Instead of submitting reports with claims, you are going to submit twice a year information on your donors, and we are going to use that information. We'll take what you give us, we'll put it into one report, and then we send it to the Department of Revenue, and they're going to be the ones that recognize your donors' tax credits when they next submit their taxes. And I believe around at that same time, we will ask for information on your accounts, on the people that you have in the program. So just twice a year is when we're asking for reports on accounts and on your donors. And just so you know, these tax credits are only for Indiana taxes, so it should only go to donors who have Indiana tax. This does not affect their federal taxes. So the way that we have the programs working currently, is that you will apply for both with this one application, which is posted to our website. And I believe I had the link at the beginning of the presentation, but they are considered to be two separate programs. Do not, whatever you do, do not mix the funds. If you are awarded both regular and IDA tax credits, this is not set up so that you can use the tax credits to increase the match of your regular IDA accounts. The IDA tax credit should be used to set up completely separate accounts and thereby increase the total number of accounts that you are working with. So some things to keep in mind on whether, if you're thinking about applying for IDA tax credits, not all of our IDA administrators do. In fact, only a couple are only ever interested. But I highly encourage you to consider it if you are a returning administrator and your last few awards in this program have resulted in a number of accounts that is far fewer than what you can manage. If we've only been giving you 10 and you can handle 15 or 20, the IDA tax credit program is where you can make up some of that difference. And if you have donors who are interested in tax credits, which if you are in the NAP program and you run out of your NAP tax credits early, I think there's a great opportunity for you to work with additional donors or increase what your donors are providing you with this program. Please do not apply for this program if you have struggled to fill all of your regular IDA accounts in the last few years. If we've been giving you 10, but you've only been able to fill 5 or 6, please focus on just filling those awards. Don't try to add to your to-do list before you have those locked down. And also, if you are in the NAP tax credit program and you struggle to distribute those tax credits, I wouldn't recommend adding more tax credits to your to-do list. So the application timeline and award timeline for this round, I released the application and the manual earlier this week on Monday, March 15th. The webinar is today. The due date for the applications are April 19th. Right now, our plan is to provide a preliminary decision on who will receive an award and maybe an idea of the award of the accounts that they might receive. We're hoping to announce that on May 10th. But there might be a delay in us finalizing your awards because I won't know how much money I can grant out until our state budget is locked down. And sometimes that doesn't happen until like mid or late May, or I'm not informed of it until mid or late May. So I will let you know in May whether or not IHCDA staff have approved your application and what we would be comfortable awarding you. But the actual amount that you are awarded might change slightly if what is available to us from legislation is unexpected, either much lower or much higher than what we were expecting. And then, of course, IHCDA staff do not have final decision on who gets awarded and what they get awarded. Our board of directors do. So their meetings, I would hope, in a perfect world, we would get these approved at their May 27th meeting, and you would know for all of June what your award is, and you can start planning for that. But if I am delayed in being told how much money we have available, it would probably be the June board meeting when these things are finalized. Normally we can turn around the contracts then and send the contracts to you the next day or two after that. And our goal would be to have those contracts signed by July 1, since that is the start of the program year. So July 1 is really the first day that you can start signing up participants. If you are told of what your award is prior to that, I recommend that you use a wait list or something similar so that you have people who are ready to participate in the program. Maybe start getting them into their educational, get those requirements, start to get those knocked out. But you really can't sign anything with them, like their savings plan agreement, which everyone will need to sign. That shouldn't be signed until July 1 or later. And then similar with the tax credits, even if the tax credit contract is signed in May or early June, you cannot start distributing those until July 1. All right. I'm gonna hop over. Are there any questions so far? All right. Hearing none, seeing none. Oh, we got people trying to get in. Then I will keep on going. So that was just our overview of IDA. Again, if you need more information, highly recommend looking at last year's overview video. So moving forward, going over the application. Oh, and here's the link to the application in case you haven't taken a look at it yet. There's also a link to it on our IDA webpage. So I'm just going to go through what each thing we're asking for. So the first things that we're going to be asking for in the application are just kind of your general information so that we have your contact information and then the information we need to ensure that basically you're the type of organization that IHCDA can give money to, i.e. a nonprofit who's in good standing with basically the IRS and the Secretary of State. So after you give all that general information, we start to get into the meat of the application. We're going to start with your account request. The first question is going to be, did your organization open any accounts last calendar year? So January to December 2020. If you did not open any accounts during that time, you're going to be considered a new organization, and we're limiting you to 5 or fewer IDA accounts. We're making a concerted effort. I'm making a concerted effort not to overload people who are new to the program or who have struggled recently. If that is your organization, I don't want to give you 10 or 15 accounts that you won't be able to fill. We're trying to match capacity with the number of accounts that we are providing. So if you're a no, you're limited to that. If you did open any accounts, our limit is a little bit squishier for you. If you did open accounts, we're going to ask how many accounts that you opened last year, and then highly encouraging you to keep your request to that number or similar. I think I raised the variation if you can request up to 125% without issue. If you are asking for a lot more, if you only opened 8 accounts last year and you want to go for 20, that is fine, but you're going to need to provide me an explanation on why you think you can make that jump. I know last year was crazy, so I'm sure that will be in a lot of people's explanation. But really, it's going to be important for you to convince me and my fellow reviewers that last year was a struggle, but you've got really solid plans in place to turn that around this year, whether that's new staff, new partnerships, you've already got a wait list going. A wait list would be a really great thing to have in there. That definitely show us that you're ready to fill accounts. Anything along those lines so that we basically can feel comfortable increasing what we provide you, even though you've done less in the last year or so. And this again is all to try to tie these awards to your performance. Not necessarily, I would hope for those who are returning that this doesn't seem as a punishment for not opening as many accounts in previous years. We're really just trying to match the account numbers with what people can actually handle so that as network wide, we're able to use all or almost all of the accounts, which is something we struggled in previous years. Okay, so after you've done your regular account request, we're going to ask you about your tax credit request. And just right off the bat, yes or no, do you want them? If you say no, the form should take out all the other questions and push you to the next section. If you say yes, then we're going to start getting into the meat. How many accounts do you want? Once you give the number of accounts, we're going to need to do some math. The math with IDA tax credits is not fun. I apologize. I haven't figured out a better way to handle it. But just remember that you can use up to 20% for admin, 80% for match. We assume agencies will want to set up their budget so that you're using that full 20% for admin. I have one agency that doesn't do that. As long as their math still makes sense, that's fine. But assuming that, then that means that you'll need $4,500 in funds for match and $1,125 in funds for your admin, which means total $5,625 per account in funding, which means when you ask for tax credits, which is what your contract will be for, you're going to need half of that. Which is $2,812.50. 50 cents in a contract kind of stinks, so I highly recommend that you make your request an even number of accounts. If you really only want 1 or 3 or 5 accounts, we're not going to necessarily say no to that, but it makes my life easier, and I imagine your life easier if you just ask for 2, 4, or 6 accounts. All right, so moving on. Once you've got the number of accounts figured out, we're going to ask about your banking partner. Each of you need at least one banking partner where you will host your IDA accounts, your admin account, and your match holding account. And whichever bank or credit union that is, they will need to sign an MOA with us. That's an important thing for this program so that later, if there's any issue, if they have staff turnover and they are not wanting to work with you, or if you have staff turnover and they need help figuring out what's going on with your accounts, it's important for us to have that written relationship with them so that we can step in and help figure out what's going on and hopefully fix any issues. And we want to get this done pretty early in the process. Previous years we didn't do this and realized sometimes we were giving y'all your match funds without having an MOA on file, which was not great. So we've changed it so that we're asking for this information up front, so that within the first month of the awards being made, we can have those MOAs locked down. And so I think some of you do know because it's impacted you, if we realize that it is past that 1 month mark and we don't have an MOA with you, we will lock that award so that you cannot draw funds until we have that MOA on file, so that we know in fact that you have a banking partner lined up, that they're aware of the program, and that they would be willing to work with us if necessary in the future. So once you've got the banking partners figured out, we get into the scored section of the application. Hopefully my math was right and there's 100 points total that you can get. 60 points is the threshold that you need to pass in order to even be considered for an award. And going through the questions in order, you're going to start with a narrative where we're asking you to describe your mission, the current projects or programs that your agency runs, and then give us a little bit of how you see them being tied to IDA. We've increased the points for this narrative from previous years. And if you want to get those full points, which highly recommend you do everything you can to get full points on the narrative, it's the narrative questions that can really hurt folks' scores. Make sure that you name your mission, like make sure you copy and paste that, if nothing else, into this section. Make sure you've got at least some of your projects and programs. You don't need all of them, but at least list the ones that you are already working on that relate to IDA in some way. Maybe they're self-sufficiency based, maybe you already have a case management based program, or you have a program where you've already encouraging folks to save, anything like that. Post those in there and be explicit in how you see those being connected to the mission of IDA. After that, we ask about the previous awards that you have or the rounds that you participated in IDA. You do get some points if you have experience in IDA. We've reduced the amount of points for this just because we want to open this up to folks who are new, who can answer all the narrative questions. But you do get some points if you've done this before. What's a little bit different this year, for those of you who are returning, we ask about counties, which we've done in the past, but we're asking about them in a slightly different way. So the points question for this is we ask for the counties that your agency will do actual outreach in. So what's your target area that you are going to be looking for IDA applicants in? Same as last year, I think you get 1 or 2 points for each county, up to, I think it's 10 points total. Separate from that, we're asking for the number of, or for the actual counties where you would accept an application from. I know it's not uncommon for organizations to maybe have 3 counties that they would actually do outreach in, but if you maybe get a call from someone who's from a neighboring county, you wouldn't say no to them. You're not doing outreach in that neighboring county, but you would still accept their application. I would love to have that list on file so that if I get the call from someone in that neighboring county, I can let them know that they would in fact accept or at least consider their application, assuming that you have accounts available. So that is not for points, that is for our contact list that we pull together using your application information. And then for some bonus points, these are not factor into the 100 points total, but you can get a couple extra bonus points. We have some counties where currently, as far as I know, no one is either offering or doing outreach or accepting applications from. In the state of Indiana, we would love to see all counties be at least able to have applications accepted, if not have outright outreach in. So we've got those listed, and if you would accept applications from that county, honestly, if that's not an issue, please check that off, and you can get, I think, a point or two for each of those. Moving past that, we ask about how you're going to provide your services to limited English populations, LEP. New for this year, different from last year, there was a narrative where we ask you to expand on it's a multiple choice question originally, and then we ask for additional details. We found that not a lot of people needed to use that, so we struck that just to make things a little bit simpler. Similar to last year, we ask about your recruitment plan. So the way that I view recruitment quote plans is that it's made up of usually multiple strategies. Maybe you plan to post things on your social media accounts, you plan to do presentations at local community events, you're going to partner with other organizations and make sure that some of their clients in certain programs definitely know about the program. Each of those things I would consider a separate strategy. So we're asking for you to name all of those different strategies that you have in mind. The more detail that you can provide in those strategies, the more points you'll get, up to 5 points. So if you just say we'll post on social media, that will probably get you like 1 or 2 points. But if you talk about all the different social media platforms that you might use, what you'll post on there, or maybe how often, just kind of give like a little bit more depth to that, you'll be much more likely to get the full 5 points. And then I know for some of you who have small IDA programs, your recruitment plan might just be, well, we have a workforce development program. I only have 5 IDA accounts. We plan to offer those 5 to our workforce development program, which has like 200 people in it. That's fine. That basically, I would consider that to be like a one strategy type plan. Again, fine, but in order to help you get more points, I'd encourage you then to talk a little bit about how you get folks into that program, into that workforce development program, just so we can get an idea of the population that you are targeting and how they might find out or how they might be connected to the IDA program. New question this year. This replaces the question on partnerships that is not being asked this year. The question that we are asking in place of that is about your case management plan. The way that IDA works, most successful administrators end up having to do some form of case management with their clients. This is not something where your client comes in, they fill out a form, they get their money, they leave, you never see them again. There should be ongoing communication with your participant. You're giving them resources, you're connecting them with things, you're checking to make sure that they're meeting their requirements and that they understand what's going on, yada, yada. So we'd like a little bit more information on how you plan to do that. In particular, we're concerned about the staffing. We've had issues, especially with small programs where there's only 1 or 2 people working on this. If that one person leaves, there might be a delay in the program moving forward while the agency waits to fill that position. So I'd like to know who your organization is going to be working on this. You don't necessarily, I'm not asking for names, but staff positions would be good. And if you do only have 1 or 2 people working on this, let me know if those people leave. Who will I need to contact to make sure that everything is still going okay with your participants? And then beyond that, just your general information on how do you expect to interact with your participants? Is it going to be virtual or in person? And you can describe what your ideal would be once COVID is completely over. If it's going to be all one-on-one meetings, or if it's going to be some one-on-one and some group meetings, if you plan to interact with them monthly, quarterly, maybe monthly calls and quarterly in-person meetings, I don't know. Just let me know how you guys are doing this, and hopefully get some points for it. Oops, that was weird. The next part of the application is going to ask about your assets and the education. Some agencies do not offer all 5 assets. Our ideal would be that you offer all 5 assets, but we do allow for you to only focus on 1 or 2. The most common are the home purchase for those organizations that focus on that in general. And then regardless of what assets that you provide for each of those assets and for the financial education that you need to provide for all of your participants. We'd like some information on what the education looks like and how it is provided. The questions are a little bit different from last year, so don't copy and paste what you did last year into this, especially because a lot of folks missed points on this. There are 4 things that you need to provide for each asset and for the financial education. And if you don't hit on all 4 of those, you're going to lose points. And if you do that across multiple assets, you're going to start to lose a lot of points and put that 60-point threshold at risk. So just give a general description of the curriculum, the topics that it covers, identify whether you will be providing that, your agency, or if you're partnering with another agency, or if you're sending folks to like an online program. Any of those are fine, just identify it. Also identify if it's a training that will be done in person, online, in some combination. Again, highly recommend that you provide detail. This is how it's being done now because of COVID, but this is how it is normally done or how we plan to do it once COVID is done. And then finally, the one extra question that we kept from last year was what are your plans, or how do you normally revise that training to meet different levels of need? And we just keep this in mind because some of the participants that you work with are going to have very little background in anything to do with financial education. They might be completely unbanked. They might not know much about credit scores and what to look for in loans or anything like that. But you might also have participants who already know all that. I mean, I've met some IDA participants who have business degrees. So you're going to have, it's very likely that you have a wide variety of participants with different backgrounds, and we want to make sure that they are all being served, that they are being provided information that is useful to them, that does not just become another checkbox for them to get through. We want them to actually get something out of this education. So looking for information on how you address that, or how you might address that if you are new or haven't yet run into that problem. And just a tip, make sure that you are reading all the questions, especially all the narrative questions throughout the application. Read those carefully. Some of them are asking for multiple things, and make sure that you are addressing all of those things. If you miss something, you're very likely to lose out on anywhere from 3 to 5 points. And if you do that multiple times, it's really going to lower your score. So read carefully. And then finally, in the application, you are going to certify that everything is correct. You're going to provide an email address, and then you're going to submit. And then whatever email address you provided, they should get a copy of your application and a confirmation that the application was sent. If you do not receive that, please reach out to us so that you can ensure that we did receive the application, and we will send you a copy of it because that's something that you should have for your files. So I'll stop here really quick and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, Veronica, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just had a quick question backing up to 2 or 3 slides about the counties served. And we have our core CSBG counties, and then we also have other services in adjacent counties, and there are IDA LSPs in those counties. But we'd gladly accept an application. In fact, we have Head Start in some of those, and some of the parents might be right in that wheelhouse. And so, there's a couple easy gimme points here for this application that I'm looking at. Can we put those down as yes, we'd gladly accept an application from applicants that live in those counties?
Yeah. And remember, I think really the way that it works, you would only get points, I think, for up to 5 counties. So if you're talking about more, please add those so that we know, but don't think that by stacking the deck with a lot of counties that you're going to greatly increase your points. But
it would get us from 6 to 10 if it's 2 per county. But yeah, it would actually make a whole lot of sense for us. It wouldn't just be tacking them on just to tack them on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so for this first one under the counties, you mentioned that in some of your counties you have it's sounded like, I think you said you had IDA folks in some of those counties, and you have programs in those counties that you would definitely accept applications from. So I would say that that would count as something that you would do outreach in. The second one is I'm really looking for any of like those counties that really fall outside of your normal service territory, where you don't have any staff, but if there's just like this one person, and you've got an extra account, yeah, you'd be open to accepting their application. That's really what we're trying to capture with the second one. If you don't have that, it's not unlikely that for some agencies, the two lists for these two first bullet points will be the same, and that's fine. If that is the case, if you have a target territory for IDA, and you're not really going to accept applications outside of that, then it's fine to have this list be the same for both. But this is just, we just run into some agencies who, if they're based on their current list of IDA counties, I might find someone who is interested who falls outside of that. And sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, no problem. Please send them over. We'll happily work with them. It's those counties that I'm trying to capture.
Okay, but overlapping with another I'm saying LSP, that may not be used in IDA, but I'm borrowing that from other programs, but overlapping with another agency is not a problem.
Oh yeah, there's already a ton of overlap. Not as
Okay,
much in
all
the
right.
South by you, definitely in the North. So that's probably why maybe you don't realize that. But yeah, overlap is totally fine. Don't worry about that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Good one. Sorry if I didn't answer that correctly the first time.
No, you nailed it.
All right, well, I'll keep going. Just a couple of things I want to hit on, and hopefully we should have a little bit of time at the end for any final questions. So I kind of touched on this in the beginning, but just trying to make sure everyone understands the process for the awards are just going to be a little bit different this year than they have been previously. So once you've finalized the application, you've sent it in, we've got all our applications, we're reviewing them. We decide who passes and who hasn't met threshold. Based on that final list of those who have passed threshold, we'll start assigning accounts. So for those who are new to the program, they're going to get 5 or less. I am going to try, I can't promise, but if you are new and you are asking for the full 5, I'm going to do my best to make sure that you get those 5. I do see that this can be a pretty intense program, and to go through all of this, set up everything with your banking partner for only 1 or 2 accounts, I don't think makes sense. So I do try my best to make sure that even if you're new, you get those 5. For everyone else, I will try to get you at least your request if we're comfortable based on your past performance. But again, I don't know how many accounts I will have available this year. So for those of you who are returning, you might see some fluctuations from your request. And so what I will reach out to you in May to let you know, hey, you've passed threshold and we're comfortable with your request, or hey, you've passed threshold, but you've requested 10 based on your performance. We'd really only feel comfortable giving you 6, just to give you that initial heads up, but I won't be able to give you your final account number again until I know the total available funds and total available accounts. I will confirm that with you in May, or May or June, whenever I find that out. I'll confirm that with you before I go to our board for their final approval, just in case if that final award proposal ends up being quite a bit less than what you were expecting and it's no longer worth it for you. I definitely want to give you all the opportunity to withdraw your application at that point before we get our board's approval. So overall, hopefully you can hang with me through this process. Again, it's going to be a little bit different, and we're just going to have to try and figure it out. And maybe legislation will have our budget done and everything will go super smoothly, but I like to plan in case things like that don't happen. All right, so before we get to final questions, for those who are returning, I want to give you a quick heads up on the things that are different in the manual. There are not a lot. If I had had time, I would have gone through and provided section numbers. I did not, but hopefully a lot of this you should be familiar enough with the program and where these might come in. The big change this year, let's just go ahead and start with that, is that this collecting a social security number is no longer a state requirement. So if it works for your program where you are not collecting that from your agencies, you can go ahead and do that. We are no longer collecting that. I'll just let you know a big reason for that is we are kind of nervous about the amount of information that's collected in this program and the fact that we no longer have a central data system. We're just a little bit nervous about how sensitive information is being managed by each agency. So we're trying to cut down on the amount of that sensitive information that we're having you collect. So we don't need the social security number, so we're no longer requiring it. However, if you find it useful to collect, if you need that in order to help your agencies open up their bank accounts, you can still require that. You are allowed as an administrator to instate requirements that go above and beyond hours. I highly recommend you don't make a habit of that or that you make a lot of extra requirements. We don't want to make this program too restrictive or difficult to participate in, but I think this could be a reasonable thing for you to do. I recommend if you only need it to open up the account and you don't need it for your data system, that you maybe just have one copy, and then as soon as the account is opened, you maybe dispose of that particular document. Just be very careful as you're handling this kind of sensitive information is all I'll say. But for this year, social security numbers are not required from us. There's a whole new section on the manual, several pages, but for those of you who are returning, it's probably one of the few sections that you don't really need to pay as much attention to because it outlines our eligibility requirements for administrators. It's nothing new. It's things that we were already basing our application review on. We had just never put it in a manual the way that is traditional to be in grant manuals. So this is more for folks who are new to the program and who aren't sure if they fit with the program parameters or if they would be approved as an organization that could handle IDA. Definitely check out that section. But for those of you who are returning, there really shouldn't be anything new in there for you. For those of you who are returning, Outcome Tracker has now been completely struck from the manual. We're no longer using that, so it should not be mentioned anywhere in the manual. Guidance that I put out either late last year or earlier this year, can't remember, but we put out some guidance that gives additional instructions on how to handle dependent income and how to handle applicants who are from the foster care system. The rules from that guidance have stayed the same. They're just now in the manual, thereby making the guidance obsolete, at least for this particular program round. Some of the things that we've added, I wouldn't say are new program rules, but more along the lines of clarification. There are a lot of times there are things that we were already approving on a case-by-case basis because we were getting questions because they weren't in the manual. But if we're giving the same approval to folks who are asking the same or similar questions, we might as well put it in the manual so that people don't have to send us those questions. So one of those was on multi-unit homes. As for the primary residence eligible asset, your participants can purchase a multi-unit home as long as they intend to live in one of the units as their primary residence. Another one, pest control. I've got some questions from some agencies on this over the years. Pest control is an acceptable home repair purchase as long as it's not the only purchase that they're making. So if they are using IDA to repair some issues like in their kitchen, and one of those issues is like termite damage, and they want to spray to keep termites from coming at least for the next year, that's fine. It just can't be the only thing, in part because normally that any kind of pest control measure is a lot of times it's temporary, and we can't have super temporary things be the only items that are being purchased with state funds. We need at least some of them to be permanent or semi-permanent. So, but we do want to allow that so that we're not causing participants to have to come back later to repair damage caused by pests. Another clarification, participants are allowed to withdraw their funds that they have saved over $1,500 for a non-eligible purchase. Now, be careful with this. We do encourage participants, you should encourage participants to save more than $1,500 if they can, either to help lower, either to help with whatever purchase they're making, or just saving in general is always, is usually a good thing. But it is their funds and they're not going to receive match for it. And so if they have a need, especially in times like what we're all going through right now, we want to make sure that they have access to those funds to meet that need. So you can allow for them to make that withdrawal. I'm updating the account withdrawal form to make that clear that if they are withdrawing those funds, that it's allowable. That's a checked thing that they can do. But we've gotten questions from this a couple times this year, I think because of the pandemic, and I wanted to make sure that you all knew that that was allowable. Updated the guidance on returning funds so that when you are sending it, please don't send them to me, send them to IHCDA Financial Operations or Financial Ops, and make sure when the check is being sent, please, please, please include the claim receipt. If we do not have the claim information, that check could sit on our desks sometimes for years, which has happened. We really need, in order to efficiently handle whatever checks we get, we need the claim information. The easiest way to do that is to include that claim receipt. This might be the last one. Is again, it's a clarification. It's something that we always expected, but was never put in writing in our manual, and it's not something that we expect most agencies to ever have to deal with, but sometimes it happens. If for whatever reason you've made a mistake, your agency has made a mistake, and you've provided match to a participant over and above what they should have received, either you provided more than 4,500, or you maybe did a 4 or a 5 to 1 match rate. We need those funds back, the funds over and above what they should have received. And that should come from you. That should not come from your participant. If there was just basically a clerical error on your part, it should be you that pays for that and pays for that with unrestricted funds. Now, if a mistake was made and it's because your participant gave you false information, that's a different story. But if it's a clerical error on your part or on your agency's part or your staff's part, then that needs to come from you and from your unrestricted funds, not from another federal or state funding source. Hopefully that's not a shocker to anyone, but we have run into that issue, unfortunately, recently. And I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page. And that's it. So I think we've got a couple of questions or a couple minutes. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, we can just go ahead and wrap this up. It does look like this was successfully recorded. So my intent would be to have this on our website under the IDA 021 section on our IDA partner page. So look for it there. I'd say by like Tuesday. It should be up. I'm hoping to get it up by tomorrow, but that might not happen. So by next Tuesday, it should be posted. If you haven't checked out our IDA page or haven't checked it out in a while, I highly recommend that you do that. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'll see if I can post that link. The way that it is set up is each program round has its own section with links to that program round's manual, to any presentations we gave for that program round, any resources that are specific to that program round. And then if you scroll past that, you'll find some really important program materials. I believe it starts with guidance, which, given the updates to the manual, a lot of that guidance is now in the manual, so it's slightly less important for at least the 2021 program round. And then after that becomes our required documents. For those of you who are returning, these documents made up our appendix in previous years. We have now made our documents so that you can use them across multiple program rounds rather than having an appendix for each program round. So make sure that you're pulling from those. For the 2021 program round and for the 2021 season, those documents are getting updated. None of them are going through major updates, but like I mentioned, the asset withdrawal form, purchase withdrawal form will have a slight change. A couple of the others will just have small tweaks. We're working on that. Those should be done, finalized, and posted to the website by July 1, if not sooner. But so in the meantime, just continue to use those documents for your savings plan agreement, for your asset purchase withdrawal form, for any affidavits that you have to have your participants sign, and all that jazz. And then further below, just continuing with the tour of our webpage, are some resources that we've provided. So these are things that either we've created or maybe some of our partners have created that we have found useful, at least at some time in the past. And I will point out, there's the IDA Rat Card, the IDA Flyer, and IDA Flyer Invest in Your Future. Those are marketing materials that we created, that we paid for, that can be customizable to an extent for your agency. So if you haven't checked those out, I highly recommend you do so. I do think they look pretty nice. We paid for their design. You'd have to handle printing costs. But if you're kind of interested in marketing materials, that is a pretty good resource. I think I got a question that's not in this chat. Let me see if I can find it about the IDA monthly. This might be a private chat, but I'll just go ahead and answer it, and I'll answer her in writing too. We do not have a IDA monthly meeting tomorrow. Our next IDA monthly meeting, for those of you who are current administrators, is on April 2nd, and I will probably take some time. I won't have a speaker on that day. We'll probably take some time to go through these changes to the manual, since I assume not everyone who is a current administrator is on this call. I want to make sure that they're aware of those changes as well. So that should be all the information I need to provide you. If there are no questions, no comments, we can go ahead and end. Thank you all for coming on and asking any questions that you did have. If you do have questions, if you're concerned about anything, confused about anything, you can always reach out to us at the IDA email. If you need to schedule a phone call, scheduling phone calls will usually work better for us than cold calls, but we're always happy to schedule a phone call to help walk you through anything on the application, anything to do with managing IDA accounts, or anything along those lines. So email us if you need us. Otherwise, I'll let you go. Have a good rest of your Thursday. I look forward to reading all of your wonderful applications, and I'll talk to y'all soon.